Sorry guys, I seem to have come down with a case of Corsair. Case like instance of illness, but also like chassis. Speaking of sick, this case is that. The SPEC-06 RGB is a pretty compact mid-tower that waddles in at 474 by 215 by 455 millimeters. That is 18.66 by 8.46 by 17.91 inches. Jumping right inside, we have room for ATX, micro ATX, and mini ITX boards, CPU coolers up to 170 millimeters tall, graphics cards up to 370 millimeters long, 7 expansion slots plus 2 more for vertical GPU mounting, and a base meant for having a basement. Going through the adequately sized hole, which is more than I can say about myself, we'll find 2 caddies for SSDs, 2 more mounting points over to the side for more SSDs, and then a removable drive bay accommodating 2 more solid states or 2 hard disks in the basement. The front supports up to 3 120mm fans or 2 140s with their respective radiator counterparts. The top has spots for 2 120s or 2 140s or a 240mm radiator, and you can stick a 120 in its rear. The more I think about that, the more painful it sounds. You get 2 regular old fans pre-installed as an intake and an exhaust, and they sound a little something like this. So the fans sound like they definitely blow, but how well does the blow go? With the front panel removed and everything cranked up to max, we see CPU and GPU temperatures reach 66.75 and 68 degrees Celsius respectively. Putting the panel back where it belongs, temperatures rise to 71 and 74, which actually isn't too bad. It's not perfect, but I've definitely seen much worse. While we're putzing around with the front, we might as well talk about the dust filters. The panel comes off easier than my pants on a hot summer day, and the magnetic filter is an attractive addition. Unlike my pants coming off on a hot summer day, which I guess is more like an unattractive subtraction. You'll find another magnetic filter up top with a final filter for the frame's foundation. Working our way further outwards, you'll find 4 rubber bottom feet that elevate the chassis high enough as to not disrespect your power supply, and on the opposite end, you'll find the I/O consisting of a power button, 2 USB 3.1 ports, headphone and microphone jacks, and a reset button. On the adjacent end, you'll find a slightly smoky tempered glass panel mounted with 4 rubber dampened thumb screws, which is different from Corsair's more recent hex screw mounting system. I personally prefer this for ease of access, God forbid I have an easy time getting it in, but you may enjoy the clean look of the other implementation more. And finally, on the adjacent side of the adjacent side, you've got a plastic panel with an RGB accent and some sweet underglow. If you like curves, pregnant bellies, or the nose of Lois Griffin from Family Guy, this is for you. There is no IQ integration, and your only adjustment method is a SATA-powered hardware controller in the back. You've got 7 available modes with color and speed control from the solid colors of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, white, and cycling, most of which can be applied to the effects of breathing, blinking, wave, marquee, color shift, and finally there's a demo mode. So now that I've brightened your day, it's time to harsh your mellow. Kind of. There's actually nothing in particular about the case I didn't specifically dislike, but there are a few things to note. Cable management wasn't bad, but if you do go overboard, it can get pretty cramped pretty fast. Clearance for your power supply is about 180 to 190 millimeters, but if you're not using hard drives, you should have all the room in the world. In the case at least. But on that note, to remove the drive cage, you have to slide it towards the power supply, since there is a little lip that prevents it from being straightforward. Kinda like my ex. So if you want to add or remove it after putting your unit in, you may be in for a rough time. Kinda like my ex. And while we're in the basement, the cutout for the radiator does not allow for push-pull configurations, but that's not something everybody needs anyway. Speaking of things that not everybody needs, if you don't want the RGB, you can save $10 by going with a white version with white LEDs or a black version with red LEDs instead. The most expensive flavor of this case comes in at $90 US, that being white or black with RGB. It's not too expensive, but nothing about it really screams it's a bargain either, though I think the price is pretty fair. The thumb screws are a slightly lower profile than what I usually see. While they help to keep a clean aesthetic, they're also just a bit harder to remove without smudging the glass. You can use a screwdriver, but that kinda defeats the purpose of it being a thumb screw. You've also got this white accent on the black case, which to me looks a little odd. I prefer more consistency, but some of you probably really like Oreos. Lastly, the case is not Q compatible. The controller is inconveniently positioned behind the case, but it's attached with an adhesive and can be moved elsewhere. The cable going to the LED strip is the same as what you'd see with the Note or Commander Pro, but I couldn't get it to interface with Q. I'm not sure if it'll be supported in the future, but for now, it's not playing nice with me. Though, if software control isn't your thing, this case is something simple that will work with the literal push of a button. But if you want something with edgier edge and more refined RGB control, I suggest taking a look at my SPEC-Omega RGB review up top. Otherwise, let me know if the SPEC-06 is spectacularly sick, or if it's more like a SPEC-O-stick. Yeah. And so that's all I have to say about that. Like, dislike, comment, subscribe, share, leave me questions if you got them. Thanks for watching. My name is Steven, and I am ALittleDIMM. Bye-bye. And then a removable drive bay. And then a removable You get 2 regular old fans pre-installed as an intake and You get 2 regular old fans and... You get 2 regular old fans pre-installed as an intake and an exhaust. Thanks. I forgot to mute that. I always forget to mute that. The panel pumps. What is pumps? That's not a word. Working our way further outwards, you'll find 4 rubber bottom. Oh my goodness. I personally prefer this for ease of access. God forbid I have an easy time getting it in. But you may enjoy the... God forbid I have an easy time getting it in. But you may enjoy the... God damn it. More sad than funny. Why do I keep laughing? But you may enjoy the clean look of the other implementation better. More. Or the nose of Lois Griffin from Family. That's a lot harder to say than I thought it would be. Or the nose of Lois Griffin from But on that note, to remove the power supply, you have to slide it. Did I say to remove the power supply? But on that note, to remove the power supply, you have to slide it. I said power supply. That time I definitely said power supply.